Welcome to Gamers Platform.
Oh.
Yeah! Good. Oh, baby! Look at that!
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to another video for First Impressions here on Gamers Platform. I'm Adam Wolf, and today we've got Days Gone. I've been waiting for this game for a couple years, and I can't wait to get into this. Now, the footage you're seeing in the background is actually gameplay that I've captured specifically for the series PlayStation Playground on my website. So be on the lookout for that. I'll be announcing it on Twitter, so go to gamersplatform.net once I have announced it, that it's up and running. And you can watch it in, might I add, much better quality than YouTube, even at 480p. So, and also, so that's the footage you're seeing in the background. And also keep in mind that this is based on the first 2 hours of gameplay, so it's not like a full playthrough, so it's not a review, it's just my impressions of the game so far. And some of the information that you might hear me talk about is not just based on my own experience with the game, but also from other sources such as Digital Foundry, who I have obtained information from by watching their stuff and just kind of reiterating it. So definitely, and I highly recommend Digital Foundry. If you don't know who they are fantastic at what they do. They break down games based on their technical aspects, and they have certainly given me some of my inspiration for doing some of the things that I do. And I just find their stuff very interesting. So go to your YouTube, Digital Foundry, and give them some support. Not like they need it, but hey, you know, all the more the merrier, as they say. So we're going to be going through a few categories, and we're going to start off with the graphics. As far as my understanding goes, this is actually one of the first, if not the first, PlayStation exclusive game built on the Unreal Engine. Okay, built on Unreal Engine 4, that is, I should say, more specifically. And it couldn't look better. It really is an amazing looking game. Unreal Engine 4 is once again showcased to be one of the most prominent engines on the market today, and I am so happy that they took the time necessary to make this game look as good as it does. The immense amount of detail that they put into the environment, the characters, all the models and everything, it really shows 7 years worth of dedicated work. And yes, you heard that right. 7 years. It's been in development since 2012, which nobody knew. I mean, they had been working on some portable games for PlayStation Portable and PS Vita, but we didn't hear about this until 2016. I believe it was 2016. So it's just insane at how good this game looks, and the work really shows in how in the quality of the product. And you know, it kind of reminds me of The Last of Us, where it's a beautiful game, but in its bleakness, as it were. It's a very dark game, obviously. I'm sure there are definitely sunny days, okay? This game has a full day and night cycle and everything, and there certainly are some sunny days, but when it's raining, it's pouring, and it looks amazing, especially when it's raining, because the specular highlights that show up on the ground, on the dirt and the mud, and just the way that the characters act, or their clothing and everything act under those circumstances is just fantastic. And the worst part about all this is that some people have, you know, a lot of reviews that you see on the game prior to its release were literally that. I mean, they were review copies of the game, so they weren't even final code, and a lot of people have based their opinions about this game on that fact. I am actually playing on a release copy with the day one patch that fixed all the issues that most people seemingly found, and apparently there have been some graphical issues, but I haven't actually seen any personally, so I don't know what everybody's talking about. I can only assume that it's all being based on the pre-release copies that all these other people got, all these other YouTube channels got. So, you know, take it take it whatever way you will. You know, I've had a lot of guys at work tell me that they've just heard that the game is absolute garbage, and I'm just like, I don't know who you heard that from, but I mean, after 2 hours, I want to keep playing this game. So, you know, it doesn't really bode well for the negativity surrounding this game, because right now it's looking damn good, in my opinion. I haven't seen any graphical glitches, and it just looks amazing. So don't really take those reviews with a grain of salt. Certainly take any review with a grain of salt, even this video. But I'm just telling you what I experienced, and I did not experience everything that anybody else experienced in the review copies, because I don't get them. I don't get review copies, so I'm experiencing it just like you guys. So that, I mean, overall, game looks amazing. I have no problems with the Unreal Engine. I think it's a fantastic engine, and I think more companies need to take advantage of what they can get out of this engine instead of spending development time making their own. Moving on to audio, even though I feel as though this isn't completely necessary for a game like this, I can tell that they've definitely gone to great lengths to make the positional audio in this game accurate to a T. You know, when you're trying to skulk around and when you're trying to go stealthy in an environment, you can hear the exact position of where each of the quote-unquote zombies are. They're called freakers, but they're zombies. They're a type of zombie. And it's fantastic, and you can hear so many little things going on in the environment, especially if you wear a headset. Okay, this is assuming that you're wearing a decent headset. You'll be blown away by the positional audio. Companies are getting so good at this, and it really shows in the final product when they do it well enough to where you're convinced you're in the environment, you're immersed in the game so much that you feel like you're there. And I absolutely love that. The voice acting is top notch. I mean, it's just fantastic. The people feels like they put their heart and soul into each character, you know, and it's really well done. It feels natural, you know. It doesn't feel like they're reading from a script. It actually feels like the characters are a thing. They're real, you know. It just they sell it. They sell it really well. Found out that the main lead actor playing Deacon played Starkiller in The Force Unleashed. Now, I don't recall, because I have only played the first one about just over halfway through, and it was a while ago, so I can't really remember what the guy sounds like. But once I go back to playing that game, I'm sure it's going to hit me, and it's going to be like, oh yeah, that's definitely Deacon. Yeah, he does a great job. I think that there's a lot of people had said that you know, the Deacon that's in the cutscenes is completely different person as to when he's in gameplay or during gameplay. You know, in the cutscenes he seems very composed. He knows what he's doing, or at least he seems like he has his head on his shoulders. Whereas in gameplay, if you're like saying stabbing somebody from behind, like a human or something, or even a freaker, I don't know, he mumbles to himself. He mutters things to himself that make you think that he's kind of losing it. And I don't know, it just seems like in that moment, that's probably what somebody would be like, you know, in the moment of you know, stabbing somebody or committing murder, as it were. But in this case, it's survival, so it's okay. It's not murder. So yeah, I don't know. I don't have a problem with it. I think his performance is great either way. But if that is the case, if that is something that is a bit jarring to some people, you know, maybe it's just the way that he was directed. You know, it's just, one can only do so much with the lines he's given without any direction. So if that's what the directors wanted, that's what they wanted, you know. And he does seem like he needs to be put together in order to maybe lead people or do what he needs to do. But I like both performances in and out of cutscenes. He does a great job. The sounds of the bikes, the melee combat, the guns, they're all good. I mean, I'm gonna have to watch the footage back, but it seemed like they were good to me. You know, I don't know if Ben Studios actually went out and shot guns, you know, to get the sounds like a lot of studios do, like Dice does that. They get their own gun sounds instead of using like very generic sounds. But it sounds good to me. You know, they sound punchy when they need to be, like the shotgun. I absolutely love the crossbow. That thing is amazing. I'm a bow and arrow kind of guy, but there are no bow and arrows in this game, so I'll settle for a crossbow. And I gotta say, the music in this game, the soundtrack, is definitely one of the best in PlayStation's lineup, for sure. It really sets the mood for the game itself. It really kind of puts you even deeper into the atmosphere of the game. It's, like I said, it's bleak, it's gray, but in a nice kind of way. It's not like, you know, it's not like there's no color in the game, but you can tell that it's been, you know, dulled down because it's a dark time. It's a dark time, but the music is fantastic. It's so well done, so well composed, and I love listening to it. You know, especially the main menu theme song. It's a lovely piece, and I can't wait to maybe see if Spotify has the soundtrack on there already, and then maybe I can just listen to it by itself and really get a feel for what the music has to offer for this game. Moving on to performance, this was a big point of contention when they announced it, and then from the announcement at E3 2016 onward to the release, there have been major frame rate issues. And when you're dealing with an open world game like this with tons of enemies on the screen at once, it can be very taxing. But I'm happy to say that the performance has been ironed out. I'm not going to say it's perfect. It's solid frame rate, solid frame pacing. You know, they've capped it at 30 FPS, and it's for the majority of the time, I would say 95% of the time, it's running at that frame rate, and it's very responsive. But every once in a while, minor hitches will occur where it'll dip down to as low as maybe 25 FPS. You know, something not terribly low, but low enough to where you notice it and you can feel it, especially if it's during gameplay. But the thought behind that is it's possible that it might have something to do with loading or texture streaming or something like that, or maybe loading a new area. And, you know, Digital Foundry had actually already tested this, and they tried out an SSD as opposed to an HDD, and it didn't make a difference. So it's within the programming itself, it's within the coding itself, and they need to iron it out a little bit more, you know, smooth things over. I'm sure they will. If they really want to support this game, they'll fix whatever minor hiccups there are, but it's nothing game breaking, and I don't think it should really bother anybody personally and turn them away from actually playing this game, because you've been missing out. Believe me, this game is 2 hours in, and I'm loving the game already. It's awesome. And the input latency, you know, most people who are not fans of low frame rates like 30 FPS tend to think that, oh, lower frame rate means higher input latency, and sometimes that's true. Depends on the version of vertical sync that the company has implemented into their game to, you know, avoid screen tearing and stuff like that. But I don't feel it here. I think the input latency is very, very low, and the controls don't feel laggy when playing. You know, it feels very much like Horizon Zero Dawn, where it's responsive, it's snappy, and, you know, it feels good in the hands. It feels good to play, and I think that is something very difficult to achieve, especially with a low frame rate like this, because it's very easy for higher frame rates for controls to feel very responsive and very fluid, but for lower frame rates, it's a bit more difficult, and I think they've actually achieved what they needed to achieve here, and because I feel like everything just feels great. You know, and we're going to transition into the gameplay where the melee combat feels brutal. The gunplay feels, like I said, very punchy and very, very fluid, and the movement of the character feels solid, feels responsive, and it doesn't feel like it really lags behind at all. So, you know, I like how they spent the time to make sure that this game runs as well as good as it looks. Stealth in this game, not bad. Not bad. I gotta say, you know, I like the idea of having to hide in, you know, tall grass. You gotta find tall grass, and, you know, you can hide behind objects like little fences and, you know, stacks of logs or something like that, or big rocks. But I like the tall grass approach. Again, I can compare it to Horizon Zero Dawn. I've been playing that a lot lately, and that implements the same or a very similar stealth mechanic where you can hide in tall grass and avoid your enemies that way, or at least ambush them that way. And it definitely works in this game quite well, especially since, you know, in a lot of zombie games, or any games really for that matter, with any kind of enemy, in the past, they tend to, once you attack one, or once one sees you, it alerts the others. But I actually ended up being in a position in this game where I was on top of a building, and it was a small building. You could climb up on it, and the freakers would actually climb up on it themselves. Maybe if they heard one of my footsteps or something, and they'd go looking. And I had a couple of them where they saw me, and I figured I'm screwed. The rest of them are going to hear it. But because I used my melee weapons instead of a gun, unless the pistol I was using was silenced or suppressed, which it was, it didn't seem to trigger all the other enemies, which is very rare in a lot of video games, because usually, like I said, the AI is programmed to be alert to its friendlies. And generally, when one of them spots the player, they do actually end up, you know, being attentive, and they come after you at that point. This doesn't seem to have that same effect. I got spotted by 2 freakers on those rooftops, and the other ones didn't even bother. Like, they were busy walking around somewhere else. So I thought that was actually a nice touch, because so many games just seem so unfair, and this one actually seems a little bit more fair, you know, because the freakers aren't anything to mess with. They will tear you apart if they get you. So I'm liking that. The crafting system in this game, it's okay. It's not the best. It's easy to understand, but it's very clunky, because they have a radial menu for, you know, choosing your crafting items and choosing your weapons and stuff, which is something I'm fine with. I've gotten used to the radial menu, and I actually kind of like it. But then they've implemented a second level ring. If you hold in a direction long enough, it'll open up a second ring, and that's where you can craft and equip or use items that you've crafted. And I'm just like, okay, I get it, but it's weird, because you have to hold it for like a second, and that's time wasted, you know. And I don't know, I feel like they could have done a little bit better with the crafting system, but it's not terribly difficult to understand. It's just clunky, and I don't know if they'll improve it, but if they do, great. If not, I'll just get used to it. But it's just, I don't know, it's a bit weird for me. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is that a lot of people's complaints with this game were babysitting your bike. You know, constantly repairing it, constantly filling it with fuel and all this other stuff. And I don't know. I mean, I didn't spend a lot of time with the bike. You know, in 2 hours, I filled it up once, and it wasn't even that empty. Maybe they just need to figure out how to balance the, you know, how much fuel gets consumed in a certain amount of distance. Maybe they can, you know, reduce the amount that gets consumed, so it's less of a burden to have to refuel it. You know, bikes are, I'm sure, a lot more robust than this game leads on, so, you know, maybe dropping the bike from a slightly higher height than it normally would be okay dropping from doesn't do as much damage or something. But if that's really a complaint of people's, they can probably adjust that. And even if they don't, I haven't seen any issues yet. But like I said, I didn't really get a chance to, I didn't get into a situation where I had to repair the bike. So maybe later on in the game, I'll start seeing what people are talking about. But for right now, hitting up the first Nora station, I just took the canister that I used to fill the generator and just refilled my bike, and I was good to go. I was topped off, and I drove back to base. So I don't know. I maybe it won't bother me. you know, I'm not really too bothered by tedious stuff that much. I guess it's in my nature, but you know, overall the bike thing I have yet to really weigh in on. So don't take my word for it. I'm a completely different player compared to whoever you are. You might not like things like that. I don't mind them. So if I have to take care of the bike, then so be it. It's just part of the game. It's a survival mechanic in the game that I'm just gonna have to deal with. But if they change it, then cool. If not, I'm okay with it. But so far, that is my first impressions of Days Gone. I'm excited. I'm a huge PlayStation fan. I love PlayStation. I especially love their exclusives, and they've been knocking it out of the park this entire year and last year. And I can't stop loving these games. They're so well done. The Sony really gives their developers the time they need to finish these games to perfection, and I can't wait to play more of this game. I can't wait to play more of the story. I think the game started very well. It's a great start to a game, and it really kind of brings you into, you know, gives you an idea and a reason for the main characters to keep moving forward. Was how they started the game. Now, in my opinion, no game will start as good as The Last of Us did. No game will start as good as that, because that was... I've never been so compelled by a game before in my life than when I first fired up Last of Us. So no game will ever compare to that, but this game definitely has a good beginning. So in my recommendation, based on the 2 hours, I think it's worth a play. I think it's worth a buy. If you're not comfortable paying $60, hey, that's up to you. But it has been stated that there will be free DLC updates later on down the road for this game. I don't know if there's a New Game Plus in the game yet. If there isn't, they'll probably put that in because people love New Game Plus. But I think it's going to be worth playing, and I think it's worth buying. So definitely recommendation from me. Ben Studios are showing their hand with their very first game in 20 years. I guess the last game they really came out with was 1999, I think I heard. So it's been 20 years since they've made their own standalone game, and this is a great first showing, and I can't wait to see what they have in store next. But that's going to do it for me today, guys. Thank you so much for joining me, and please join me again in the next First Impressions video, where we take a look at yet another game, fresh new face on the block, and pick it apart and see what we like and what we don't like. And if you haven't already, give me a follow on Twitter at @GP_net. Go ahead and give my Facebook a like, facebook.com/gamersplatformnet. I do post things to both of those, so if you're not getting notifications through YouTube, definitely keep your eyes out for those notifications on each of those social platforms. Give the video a like if you liked it, a dislike if you didn't, get subscribed if you haven't already, and until next time, guys, I'm Adam Wolf. This is Days Gone, and I'll see you guys in the next one.